Okay, so this is the big one. This is gonna be part one of my Manny Pacquiao versus Errol Spence prediction and breakdown. There's definitely gonna be a part two to this video. There may be a third part to it, but for now, we'll just start by going through the tale of the tape. The legendary, one of the greatest to ever do it. Not only the best pound for pound fighter of the last 20 years, but one of the best ever. The best southpaw ever. Yes, over Marvin Hagler and Pernell Whitaker. The best Asian fighter of all time. Somebody who Burt Sugar had ranked in the top 20 of all time in 2009 after his victory over Miguel Cotto. Imagine where Burt Sugar would have him ranked if he was around nowadays. Do you know more about boxing than Burt Sugar? The answer's no. But Manny Pacquiao, 42 years of age, stands at 5'6", has a 67-inch reach. His legendary record reads 62-7, with 3 of those losses coming by way of robbery, and 2 with one of those draws coming by way of robbery, and 39 wins coming by way of knockout. Errol Spence is 31 years old. He stands at 5'9". He has a 72-inch reach. His record reached 27-0 with 20 wins coming by way of knockout, and has fought a lot of retards. Now, I'm going to tell you this right now. Win, lose, or draw, this is going to be the most difficult fight of Errol Spence Jr.'s entire career up to this point. Yes, that's including Shawn Porter. Shawn Porter is the one other elite fighter that he's fought, and he went life and death and arguably lost to that man. If it wasn't for the knockdown, he would have lost that fight. Now, Pacquiao speaks for itself. For those of you that remember me from my old channel, you know I gave the good thorough breakdowns in the Keith Thurman fight, the Pacquiao Thurman fights, the Pacquiao Broner fights, and the Pacquiao Matisse weight classes prior to fighting Errol Spence, and was coming off of face surgery because Golovkin broke it. Okay, so personally, I don't rate the Kell Brook one. I also don't rate the Mikey Garcia one because Mikey Garcia is a pussy, and he's always been a hype job. He fought nobody to win his 4 world titles, and yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't rate Mikey Garcia. As far as his 2 most important wins are Shawn Porter and Danny Garcia. Now, Shawn Porter, Errol Spence went life and death with. Some people feel Shawn Porter won that fight, and it was one of those type of fights that could have went either way. I think the knockdown saved Errol Spence from losing that fight. Manny Pacquiao has also brought Shawn Porter into his training camp, as they are very familiar with each other as former sparring partners. This is going to, and I'm sure Shawn Porter is going to be, and Shawn Porter fought the best version of Errol Spence we've ever seen. I don't think that anybody would really argue with that, and I'm sure Shawn Porter has given Pacquiao a lot of pieces of advice considering he went to war with them a couple of years ago. Now, another thing we have to take into consideration is Errol Spence's car crash. To me, Errol Spence's speech hasn't been the same since the car crash. His reaction to punches hasn't been the same since the car crashes. His reflexes hasn't been the same since the car crash. Now, I'm not saying that takes anything away from Manny Pacquiao's victory at all, because it does not. There is no excuses. Manny Pacquiao's 42 years old, 11 years older than Spence, and he's half his size. So that's null and void. But it is an important observation to take note of, that Errol Spence's speech, reflexes, and punch reactions are different now. And if you go back and study, like I did, and watch the Spence Porter and Spence Danny Garcia fights back to back, you will see what it is that I'm talking about. Okay, what's it called? Another thing we do have to take into consideration is Pacquiao hasn't been in the ring for 2 years. He is past his prime. He is 42 years old. But once again, this is Manny Pacquiao we're talking about. The modern era Roberto Duran. Okay? You cannot write him off. Period. Why can Errol... What are Errol Spence's perks going into this fight? He's bigger, stronger, and younger. What are Pacquiao's perks going into this fight? Experience, hand speed, foot speed, hand speed, foot speed, a shit ton of more experience and accomplishments. And that's ultimately what I think is going to do Errol Spence in this fight. I believe that Pacquiao's experience, his hand speed, his crazy angles, even though he's past his prime and 42 years old, will still outweigh the size and the youth and the power of Errol Spence. Couple of things Manny Pacquiao has to do to assure his victory in this fight. Stay off the ropes. Don't let Errol Spence get off his body work. You can spin him like Pacquiao has shown a little bit with Margarito right here in the clips that I'm showing you. Maybe go back against the ropes, spin him around, and put Spence back against the ropes. Play possum a little bit with him. That I could see Pacquiao doing. But don't lay on the ropes. Pacquiao's conditioning also has to be better than it was in the Keith Thurman fight. He clearly beat Keith Thurman. I had that fight 8 rounds to 4, 116, 111 plus the knockdown. But he did gas a little bit. He did fatigue a little bit in the mid rounds. Let's not kid ourselves here. So Pacquiao has to be more conditioned in this fight. He has to be at least as good as he was in the Thurman fight. That's what I'll say to that. He has to be at least as good as he was. For Spence has to keep Spence should make it a boxing match instead of a war. Use his length, use his jab, and systematically break Pacquiao down. But Pacquiao's not going to allow Spence to do that. Manny Pacquiao should keep this fight in the middle of the ring, use his hand speed, use his foot speed, and use his angles, and tear Spence to shreds, and try his best to keep his back off the ropes. Now, in order to do that, because Spence is a pressure fighter, Manny Pacquiao is going to have to be well conditioned. Understand? So, with that being said, with that being said, man, I think Pacquiao is going to overwhelm Spence. I think he's going to surprise a lot of you guys, just like he did in the Keith Thurman fight a couple years ago. And I think he is going to fucking pepper Spence. Spence isn't fast. Another thing I have to say this too. Keith Thurman was fast on his feet, has fast hands. Errol Spence doesn't have fast feet. He's flat-footed. He's straight up and down. He has a good stiff jab. He's big, but he's straight up and down. He's smaller than Margarito is. Spence is. Okay, now I know this is a prime Pacquiao and we're not dealing with the prime Pacquiao, but it's something to take into consideration. Spence doesn't have the hand or foot speed that Keith Thurman does. He's a little bigger and a little more powerful maybe, but he doesn't have the footwork or the hand speed that Keith Thurman does. And that's the reason he's going to be a sitting target for Pacquiao, and that's the reason why Pacquiao is going to win this fight. And in my opinion, he's going to win this fight. It's going to be back and forth. Both guys are going to have their moments, but in my opinion, Manny Pacquiao is going to win this fight pretty decisively. And the final couple of thoughts here, I will say this. Again, if Father Time shows up to fight Errol Spence wins. If Manny Pacquiao shows up to fight Errol Spence loses. It's that simple, people. That's the determining factor for who's going to win the fight. If Father Time shows up to fight Spence, Spence wins. If Pacquiao shows up to fight Spence, Pacquiao wins. That is the determining factor. Regardless of the size, regardless of the age difference, regardless of the, everything. Pacquiao has the experience edge on him. He's got the quicker hands and quicker feet. And he's arguably, like I say, the best southpaw in the history of boxing. And you see that picture right there? You see that picture right there? Let's pause that real quick. Come on, let's go back. Let's see that real quick. That's what you're gonna look like night of the fight, Errol Spence. Mark my fucking words on that, dog. You're gonna get broken. Those fake teeth you got put in after you went through the Ferrari windshield, they're all gonna be spread all over the canvas. And you can mark my words. And my final prediction for this fight is this. Manny Pacquiao late TKO. Now this is gonna be part 1 of 2 videos that I'm gonna be doing. The second fight, or the second part of this video is gonna be during fight week. Right before the fight. But I got Manny Pacquiao 10th or 11th round TKO in this fight. Hope everybody enjoyed the video. Please be sure to hit the like button and subscribe. And if you're new to the channel, and I appreciate every single one of you guys for stopping by. May God be with you all, and stay safe out there, people. Salute.